All right, 6:33, we're calling to order the regular monthly meeting of the Economic Development Commission, December 7th, 2023. The agenda is up on the screen. We have additions or deletions. We have citizen comments. I think most of you, all of you maybe know that if you have comments that are something not on the agenda, make them at the beginning. Otherwise, we almost always have time for you to make the comments as we're discussing things. So if you can hold them till then. We have, we're going to do new business before old business. We have feedback that we would possibly give to potential applicants for the community grant program. We've allocated time at this meeting and the next meeting to let applicants give us a 2-minute summary of what their grant idea is and to have EDC members react to give them feedback so they can strengthen their application, anticipate really the concerns or the problems or the questions that we would have so that they can make sure to build that into the application. We have, I think, 4 grantees who are going to do that. One of them, Lisa Lawler, can't make it this time. She'll come the next time. And if there are any of you who are on the call who are interested in applying to the community grant program, the deadline is January 17th. And the annual meeting where we allocate this year up to $70,000 is in the end, I think like January 30th. It's right at the end of January, something like that. But the deadline is January 17th. And again, we're trying to, I think Michael, I don't know if Michael is on, I think he was going to be on remotely, but Michael has a grantee experience that we needed to provide more opportunity for people to get feedback. So, so that's why we're doing that.
Hey, I'm on, and thanks for the shout out.
Okay, great. Thank you, Michael. The second item is a review of the inventory of ideas that was raised at November 30th. And to begin the prioritization process, or perhaps to discuss how we go about them. That's the second item. And then third is talking about what I'm going to call from now on our communications platform. We've used the communications platform up until a few months ago, almost exclusively for marketing. So we're calling it our marketing platform, but it really is a communications platform. And I think you'll see tonight why that's the case. Greta's going to give us an update on the marketing, on the discussions with the marketing group, and lead us through a discussion of what the platform could be used for. And then Deborah's going to, has taken the lead on implementing the grant follow-up process for prior grantees. Okay, Beth, we gave you money to plant flowers. Did you actually plant flowers? And she'll describe what that process is. And yeah, describe what the process is. Okay, are there any additions or deletions to that scintillating agenda? No, hearing none. Okay, are there any citizen comments? And if you are here, we have the podium. If anyone looked at the recording of the last meeting on November 30th, you would notice that the people at the podium were the only people, I believe, who were not on the video. What was on the video was their hand waving in front of that camera. and the more demonstrative you are as a speaker, the more your hands were on camera. You could have, yes. However, this time I believe we have technically switched the buttons so that the podium will be on the camera. Are there any no additions or deletions to the agenda? Okay, feedback. And I'm going to switch. This is in your packets. All of this stuff that you're going to see on the screen, or almost all of it, is on the website. Some of it is just for tonight, and we'll put it on the website as soon as we're done. So
Hey, John, can you tell those of us who are on Zoom who's there as far as the EDC is concerned? I don't have any idea who's at the table.
Okay, sorry. Greta and Marion and me.
Okay.
And then,
thank you.
Yeah, you can see who the rest are. So the grant applications are now integrated into Grant Manager, which down the road over time will consolidate our data for what it's worth. So it looks physically a little bit different. The grant application itself is identical to last time with the addition of one question, which we added, which was, I forgot, well, when will you need the money? What's the timing? How many months? You know, when will the project be finished? Something like that, so that we are able to have our, sorry, I'm losing all the words. We'll be able to have our ability just to stop the grant and say, okay, the time is up, or consider that anyway. So the first one is just a test. Sorry, there's still some things in the database we were testing. The second one is the Tafteville Country. So we have applications from Todd about a ADA bathroom, from Matt Powers, an exhibit at the History Center, and Mark Harris for Wamba. Lisa Lawler is going to present next time. So we'll just go in that order. Todd, I think, again, just give us a 2-minute summary of the grant request and tell us like what kind of questions, or let us ask you questions or concerns that might arise.
Sure. So, you know, in the tassel store, it's been a long project for the town. Everyone's pretty familiar with it. You know, my family trust has spent just about $1.5 million to get it where it is. And with the strikes and whatnot, I'm out of money, but I want to move forward. So I'm looking for community support. The support we're looking for is specifically to pay for a fairly small portion of what allows us to completely operate on the exterior grounds without a restaurant inside. And all that is necessary for that is the ADA ramp entrance, which has to be modified from the current entrance from the parking lot, and the ADA bathroom, which will be a second bathroom. Fire and permits have all told me that once I have that, people can have all kinds of events outside. We can cook outside. We can actually cook inside too. And, you know, there could be farmers markets, food trucks, anything really. So we spent about $250,000 in that parking lot and new front entryway. And until this happens, no one can really do anything with it in terms of having anything with food on site. So I'm hoping for community support. I put in what I thought was a fair number to ask for, all things considered, but I certainly understand it's a lot considering the scope of the 70,000. So I'm willing to hear what everyone has to say or whatnot, but I really want to get this done. But without some significant help, it'll just be delayed and delayed. And I think that, you know, when we hear things about the town having problems with food and this and that, like, we really want to open it up to anybody that has any good ideas. And we're not going to think about trying to monetize that in this way until we have a real tenant operating restaurant or store. So yeah, that's basically what it's all about. The 604,000 is the site work I've done to date, and the engineering work, the public water supply work, all those things. And what's left, which I have included as the budget from Trumbull Nelson Construction, is the part I'm talking about, specifically just this ADA entrance ramp and bathroom. And again, just to reiterate, that means people could do something inside or outside, but without that bathroom, we're not able to operate.
Okay, are there any feedback or questions? This is not like, yes, we'll approve, no, we'll approve, but just what substance would we want to see in the full application and so forth? From EDC members first, or really only, I think.
I mean, I think the only thing is maybe just really, we know you, and there's a lot that goes unsaid as far as your support for the community, but I think spelling out how this really would support the community and what the kind of activities and the need for those activities you see in a little more specificity would help.
Yeah, I think there's parts that you don't see in here that might be helpful for this sort of discussion, John, that, because maybe it's been answered, maybe it isn't. I'm not sure if that might inform.
No, I don't think you have to inform us now. I think just take that feedback.
Oh, no, I'm saying, like, it might be helpful if you displayed more of the app, because you have those questions you ask where we talk about deeper community engagement. So maybe Marion would be like, this is great, but because she's not seeing that, she doesn't know if I did a poor job or not. And I'd love to know what people think. So just sort of thinking about that as the first person to read. There's like 4 or 5 more paragraphs of text that could be helpful.
The whole application, in your case, the whole application is submitted actually. So yeah, okay, let's, as a process improvement, why don't we give you a chance to come, and we'll do this with the others as well, to come back at the next meeting as well.
Okay.
When we'll give everybody access to the full, we can't do it tonight. We'll give everyone access to the full submissions, and they'll be able to read through to what extent.
That'd be great, because I know I can do a better job. So this feedback is really important. I think Michael made a great suggestion. So that would be fantastic in my regard.
Greta?
I have a logistics question. So you were saying that you just made a 27-car parking lot. Is that accurate?
Yes.
So if there were to be food trucks or other activities set up in there, I haven't seen the layout of the parking lot. Would that take away a lot of the space that people would be able to pull in and out of there? It doesn't seem like there's a lot of parking in Tassville.
Yeah, it would take away the square footage that goes in the lot. So the way it's built, you kind of come in, you can go left or right and have the turnabout that way. So there's also greenery on the backside going toward Heartland. So, you know, there's a spot that's designed to sort of be able to plop someone's truck in a way that's off the parking lot. But you know, it's a big parking lot, and we also have parking on the other side that I didn't include in the scope because I didn't want to get into the other side of the building. There's 6 spots there. But yeah, if there was a food truck, it would definitely take 2 spots, probably maybe 1, not 3 or 5 or 7. If there was a farmer's market, it would probably be local people doing that sorts of thing, because the lot is the place to park in that place for sure. So what we're looking to do is just sort of open up this investment to community activity and facilitate that activity to sort of go hand in hand with what the idea of the hamlet was and what the country store used to bring in terms of community engagement. But yeah, anything that comes on would go pretty much in the back of those spots. Yeah, that's correct. It would shrink.
Deborah? You're muted, Deb.
It might already be in here, so I'm sure you probably did a great job with in your 5 paragraphs, so I'll look through. But is the bathroom inside and only inside, or can, you know, if the store isn't open and there's something going on outside, can you still use the restroom if only an outside activity is going on?
The bathroom's inside. It has to be inside. It's right when you walk through a door. And our idea is that, especially while there's no tenant, which could be a long time, could be forever, you know, we just don't know. The economics of it are rough.
Right.
But if someone has an event, that's the bathroom they're going to be able to use, because that's the only way we can permit the event. So any public activity on that spot that has anything to do with food, for sure, they have to have that. But we're not interested in sort of closing it off. So if the store is being minded, the store is an empty space. If the property is being minded and we're allowing someone to operate, we're going to package that with the bathroom too, because that's the whole point of us trying to help everyone out. If that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
But it's not a 24/7, like someone could come in and use. It's not that, but
No. I'm just saying, if the store is not open.
yeah, we don't know if the store will ever open, and sort of 'cause we can't do it. So in going through that, we're like, how can we utilize what we have? And this key component, it goes, again, just to reiterate, anything that happens outside, the bathrooms are open and people can come and go, and we're going to just make sure that whoever's monitoring that event is just, you know, monitoring that part of it too.
And
Go ahead, Deborah.
if you don't have a store there and you have the parking lot open, you're not gonna have the restrooms open unless there's food trucks there and et cetera. Like,
No. If we say someone can use the space, so someone came to us, they wanted an art fair, a crafts thing, and we weren't ready because we don't want to get sued, right? Like it's just not worth that, but we wanted to do it. So this is the piece that's missing.
Right.
So if someone comes and community member wants to use the space, like whatever small fee we would charge to cover the basic stuff would be that. And then they just be able to use it, sort of like renting out an event center. But we're not really interested in turning that into a profit center. When we have the restaurant and store, we're interested in that as landlords. But in the meantime, it's going to take so long for something to go in there.
Totally.
This is what we're hoping to accomplish. And if, again, you know, just on a personal note, you know, if I was working the last 6 months, I wouldn't be here, but this is where we sit. So that's why I'm coming.
Totally. Thank you.
Todd, a quick question. So if, let's just say, once the restaurant is in, because if we make an investment, you know, it's for the long term. Once there is a restaurant in there, would the bathroom be open for people, say, who were coming, you know, driving from the center of Woodstock to the end of the bridge and go over and?
What we're doing. Yeah, John, that's a great question. So, you know, because I'm bad at this, as you guys know, the 2-year journey of our family and the dealing with getting this thing going. We're not good at it. So we're trying to err on the side of happiness in all areas. So the idea of the parking lot wasn't just to support a restaurant because it's much more parking is necessary. It supports safety for the bridge and all sorts of things. So we plan on engaging with Bauer and trying to make bridge people out of town know they can park there. We do have a park mobile. It's $2 an hour. So the people that come in town that don't pay, we don't care. The people that come from out of town, if they go and pay, we're happy to take that $2. You know, it's sort of that the idea is that the restaurant is the place we're going to do for retail. There's a natural barrier in that first floor space, and past the front part, the frontage is the restaurant space, the country store main space, and the back part where the bathrooms are, which is right where that entrance will be full country store and bathroom. And we're not going to let a tenant, restaurant or otherwise, ever have that be exclusive.
So I guess, so one thing you want to do, and then Michael, you can get the last word here. But one thing I would say in your application then is effectively, you're creating a restroom that's accessible to the public.
Yeah, as long as someone's there to mind it, right? So
when the building is open, either.
Yeah, when there's an event or anything's going on in there that people from the public have engaged us, the bathrooms will be open for anyone who wants it. And there's two.
But if there's a restaurant and the restaurant is open,
yeah,
will someone riding their bike who's not a customer of the restaurant be able to use it?
Yes, the restaurant.
So if the lights are on inside, the bathroom is a public bathroom.
Yeah, no leasee will be able to have exclusive use of the two bathrooms.
Okay. All right, Michael, and then I think we should move on. Just if that's all right. Michael, go ahead.
This is a fun one for me, right? Because I submitted the same
application. Yeah, the bathroom, Michael. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, this was my application 2 years ago.
I have a shady sewer pipe too.
that got turned down, right? And so I guess just generally, maybe this isn't the time and place for I would love us to be or state our kind of opinion, and maybe I need to be caught up on investments into like private businesses and this type, because that was kind of wholesale stated as one of the reasons why my application didn't go through. So I would want to understand that better. The other thing that
I think that's not, as a public person, that's not for me to comment on. It's an EDC thing, and I think I would. You know, I
did have something though for you to like just to maybe opine on a little bit for me is understanding. It's like, so you don't have a tenant in there. Is it difficult attracting a tenant? What's been the challenges to getting a tenant? Because I think that's part of how this bathroom becomes accessible, is if you actually have the space in use. Because without that, it's
there's a two-pronged question there. I'll go with the 3,000 unique cars pass that store a day, and a lot of them have to pee. Even when the store's boarded up and I'm in there, someone knocks on the door. Lots of people, I don't know what the data is because the Vermont Trans doesn't provide the bridge data, but we know the data going past the store. So in terms of people having to use the bathroom, there's a lot. In terms of I'm sorry, what was your other part? The what? The tenant, right? So the tenant, I've already spent $150,000 building out infrastructure for anyone to go in there, and they're gonna have to spend another $150,000. So when you go and find a restaurateur or someone and they want to do business in Vermont, just look at Matt Lombard or anybody. It's incredibly expensive to make a new space. The public water supply alone was $60,000 for a pump and permit system. So it's a cost issue, because I'm not in the business of losing money in terms of like Charlie Major Enterprises, this industry that our company that trust that has this space, but I am in the public good business. So this is sort of straddling that line, but I don't know if anyone will be able to afford what they're going to have to pay to do it. If someone came in there and said, a guy came in and said, I want to have an art gallery, he couldn't generate enough revenue to cover the rent. A restaurant would be better off. So I hope someone comes in. We've only had 2 inquiries in the last 3 months. But you know, I've been in real estate a long time. My wife is in real estate, and it could be years, it could be tomorrow. You just never know. But it's very expensive to do a build out in there. The kitchen plans for ours alone were 6 figures just for the little kitchen. So it's really rough for new entrepreneurs to come in if they're not solidly backed. And the other issue is, not to pine this too much, but we can't take someone that doesn't have strong financials coming into this building. So they can't have a new startup idea without serious backing. And that's a tough thing too in a state like Vermont, a small state.
Let me just suggest that. Oh, sorry, Michael.
I was just gonna say I'll help spread the word. I didn't know you
I
guys.
appreciate that, man. It's a great space. It's so awesome.
I think what this back and forth, particularly Michael's question, suggests is that as applicants come here and ask these questions, I think anyone on the EDC should feel free to follow up with the applicant if you have further questions or further refinement and so forth. And again, Michael, you were also asking a little bit about feedback about a discussion within the EDC. We can talk about that offline or online. But don't anyone from the EDC please feel free to contact anyone who's in these discussions now and in January if you have further ideas for them. Okay, let's move on because
Thank you.
Refresh my memory about how much you're spending on these, how much you've budgeted for these.
we've budgeted $70,000 for this year.
Great, thank
It was 100 last year, 70 this year.
Yeah, I realized you were stepping down. Great,
Okay.
thank you.
I don't, is Matt here?
I'm behind the podium.
Oh, that's why I can't see you.
I didn't mean to do that.
Can you come up to the podium? Yeah, that would be great.
All right, that's a long time since I've been at a podium, so you never give me a microphone. I don't know if everyone read our small grant compared to, I think, some of the other ones, but I'm happy to say we just finished this morning renovating our gallery. Before had been a gallery built back in 40 years ago with the Cannonday family for a very specific collection that we still have, and we've kind of gotten away from that and done sort of annual exhibits, and I'm really just focusing on making it back to a gallery space, and that'll sort of lead to some other events and workshops and other sort of lecture programs that will be launching out of this. But for the most part, what we're asking for from the EDC is a sponsorship for the History Center to be investing in a small portion of our creative economy, specifically in the village. We're using our collection with a little bit of loans in, highlighting sort of the special things from our collection, both in art and craft. And then we also have some other ideas down the road that have already been delivered to us about other exhibits, both in that space and in other spaces as well. So it kind of spills over. I have a commitment from the Vermont Symphony Orchestra. They're celebrating their 90th anniversary next year, which is exciting. And they actually launched out of 7 the Green way back in the day, which we are neighbors to. And so they were very excited that we were doing something at our place. And so we have a commitment for June 7th for them to come and do a performance with their principal musicians. So we'll be getting a tent, and for the most part, we'll be sending this out to members and friends, and also the VSO will be bringing some people in of their choosing. We'll have an opening reception, and then we're launching out an art and culture series. We have commitments from a few lecturers, and we're also developing some online programming that'll highlight different art pieces from the collection and then out in the larger community. I guess I'm sort of speaking to the choir because I think you all understand what the creative economy does. Through the Upper Valley, there was a really wonderful article the other day in the Vermont Standard that American Arts launched a sort of a probe of what the creative economy and the nonprofits that contribute to the arts and culture sector contribute to our area. And it was the first time we actually had data surrounding that, which was really exciting. You guys just need to know that, you know, nonprofits like ours, these small organizations generate about $19 million in our small area, both with performances and galleries and all sorts of workshops and performance art. So we're just jumping back into that game and really trying to highlight what we have, and having a gallery space as a nonprofit in the village, I think is important. Many years ago, we did an art walk. We were trying to get galleries and get evening programs together and start collaborating with organizations, showcasing art and culture. That was very exciting at the time, and we had great participation, and other programs got launched out of that. So we're basically kind of repackaging it up again and trying it all over again. And we've already got collaborators and contributors, both monetary and otherwise, lined up.
All right. What are the kind of questions or concerns we would have when we're considering this grant? Deborah?
The only thing that I'm thinking is what additional support do you need? Do you need more support than just this $1,000?
Well, I kept it within the parameters of our sponsorship, and literally I was just pitching the idea to somebody, a local business person, and they right out of the gate became a principal sponsor as I was doing this application. So I'm asking what we need. We have an underwriter at the History Center. They're very generous. They've been with us for many, many years. So we have a organizational underwriter that's helping us. We have a principal sponsor, and then I will be reaching out to other business partners to hopefully gain some more sponsorships. But you can kind of look at, I think it's important. I feel like it's important. I hope you guys agree that the EDC is a part of highlighting the creative economy, and this is in a very small way that you can participate.
Yes, I'm not saying like ask for more. I'm saying like, is there additional, I get that. Is there additional things that you need that, you know, because it's such a small grant that you need from us in support?
Yeah, I think I knew that question would come up. If you want to give me more money, Deb, we can certainly talk. I think you'll probably see me again because, again, I have other exhibit plans for other programs, both on-site and off-site, for artists who want to do shows and all sorts of things. So I think it's a start of a dialogue over the long term with you guys, and I hope you guys sort of partner both in the short and long term.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I
Matt.
have a quick question. I think in your application, you don't have to answer it now, but just make clear whether this, it's pretty yes or no question, whether this is supporting a single exhibit, which would expire at the end of a year, however long exhibits last, or whether it's something that will, whatever the 12,000 will build something that will endure beyond that.
This is just for this exhibit, which will last at least 2 years.
Well, then just at least say that it's going to last 2 years.
Yeah.
So that the application says that, because I think for us, for me anyway, the endurance is one dimension.
Yeah, definitely 2 years. I'll write 2+, if that helps.
Building a building.
Yeah, the nice thing is that there are other, the other parts of the exhibit, you know, the programming and the events will also showcase our sponsors. So it's sort of, you get the exhibit plus these other things.
Okay. All right, any other questions or comment or advice?
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Next time, don't sit behind the podium if you want to get called up. Okay, Mark. This is the Wamba.
Hi, so I'm here on behalf of the Woodstock Area Mountain Bike Association. This is essentially a repeat request from the generous grant that the EDC provided last year for us to host the EDC, the ESC, the Eastern States Cup, which is a New England regional mountain biking series is the best way to describe it. And just high level, the ESC takes races all over New England, from Maine to New Hampshire, Maine, Rhode Island, into Vermont. They have about 16 dates, mostly at ski mountains that have downhill mountain biking. We were a little bit outside the box 2 years ago when we started the idea that we could host one of these races. And it was incredible. We came to the EDC last year because we needed some of the infrastructural things that that exist on the ski mountains just in their daily operations, but Wamba had to provide in order to make the race ready. I'll give you the quick highlights of last year. There were 325 riders, 70 of them were 16 or under. That means, kids don't come to these races alone. We parked in the parking lot of S6, we had 80 registered. I'm sure a few cars snuck in, but campers and vans, and it was a scene in the S6 lot for 2 nights. It's a 2-night, 2-day festival. Saturday practice day, all day, and then Sunday morning starts racing. The EDC's support allowed us to provide porta potty service through Allards, I believe was the company we used, and we had a medic on site for both days, Saturday and Sunday. This year we had one transport. I think it was a broken collarbone, one of the younger riders, but things were great. Otherwise, that's part of the nature of mountain biking races. And so this year we're back we're still negotiating with the ESC on the date. It will be either late September or either September, I think it's 29th weekend, or most likely October 5th. My application was pretty drafty. I was just getting it in to make sure I got onto the agenda. But we'd like to ask the EDC for renewed support so that we can run this once again. And then I'll just say, at the high level, we're talking about this as is this a long-term forever festival that we want to host every year? Has this run its course? I would assume by the end of January, I'll have many more answers to those things. But it's been good. It was good year one. It was great year two. And we've had a lot of requests to come back for year three. So here I am asking for support for a second year of the race.
Okay, questions? Marion?
What was the date last year?
October 21st.
So similar timing.
Yep. It's a peak fall weekend. It's one of the weekends we probably don't need more people in town. But the nice thing is they, like I said, they're predominantly campers. There are some Airbnb people and, weekend stays, which are, they all find places to sleep. We brought in the Woodstock, the farmer's market in the parking lot, I think had one of its best Saturdays ever, because they woke up to, they were setting up with 80 campers all hungry and waiting for them to open, hoping there'd be something to eat. And then Sunday we brought in the Epic food truck. Not sure where they're out of, but they came and our racers cleared them out. And so they know next year that they have to bring much more food.
Any other questions or comments?
Mark, I love hearing about some of the economic benefits of this event and stuff, because I disclosure, I was one of the course marshals in the previous year, so I've always seen it from that aspect. But the idea of it, selling out for the farm stands and helping out some local restaurant businesses is really awesome. So look forward to reading more about it.
Great.
Is the infrastructure, it sounds like is not permanent. I mean, infrastructure usually, like, it must be equipment that you rented and you're going to asking to rent it again. Is that?
Well, I say infrastructure, porta potties, we just did.
Okay, I see. It is infrastructure. I see.
That is
Operating. Okay.
Yeah, and it's operating. And so the other piece is with the paramedics, most downhill resorts are open for lift service riding. Their staff are there. That's part of their doing business. We hired, Woodstock EMTs to be on site for 2 days.
And is there, a normal question that we would ask when events come, you don't have to answer tonight, but what is your plan to become financially self-sufficient?
Yeah.
You don't have to answer tonight. Just saying that.
I'll be ready for that one.
That's a question that we asked. Another question, because of the date of it, would be, and again, don't try to answer it tonight, but I think a question we will end up asking, particularly as time goes on, we're going to ask this more and more, is since you're proposing to do something during a peak period, how will you propose to manage the impact on our infrastructure? And maybe there's an opportunity to actually help it rather than hurt it. More food trucks, more bathrooms, getting people to come out there for lunch, even if they aren't mountain biking, whatever. But I think we're going to ask you, explain again why you want to bring people to town on October 5th.
Right.
And so you just need to have an explanation for that.
I'll be ready for you.
Okay, any other questions? So, would not briefly, is there,
Yeah, that's okay.
yeah, why don't you send him the kind of questions that you would ask? You can all give feedback to him. I just said this process will take too long. Okay. All right. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Okay. So that was the first time we've tried this. Thank you, Michael, for suggesting it. And I can't make this. Oh, that's because, geez, that's interesting. I'm going to make it from illegible to really illegible.
Different size illegible.
It sounds like a plan.
Yeah. Okay. A review of the inventory of ideas generated at the.
Sorry, John, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you click on that P words bookmark for me, if you don't mind?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Oh, no, thank you, Ben. Sorry about that, Marlena. We didn't coordinate this, so we don't have an application, or I don't know if we do. I had printed it out. So Marlena, go ahead. Can you?
Yes. Hi, thank you so much, and thank you, Ben. My name is Marlena McNamee. I am here on behalf of the Mountain Views School District, and along with Ben Ford as well. Last year, the EDC funded the fundraising manager position, which is my position. I would like to try to separate myself from the request a little bit and just talk about the position. But I do serve in the position. We've had a lot of success this year, fundraising, and also with communications around the new middle and high school, and community engagement for sure. So all of those pillars, we've had a lot of success. And we would like to apply for another funding, because this funding definitely impacts our tax capacity and what our individuals need to pay in tax. The more that we raise through fundraising, or we want to morph into enrollment as well, will significantly reduce the tax burden for folks for this new school if the bond is passed in March. So this year, in 23, we've been focused on fundraising and also community awareness and engagement around the bond vote, which is going well as can be expected. It's a sticky project that is complicated, and we need to spend a lot of time with either constituents or donors to explain this project. But we've done a lot. I don't know if you guys want me to quickly tell you what we've done, but we would like to apply for more funding this year, not for all of it. We would also, my position is part-time. We would like it to be full-time and include enrollment management as well. So I just wanted to know it was worthwhile for us to apply. We have a lot of balls in the air right now with the bond vote and also fundraising. So, yes, I don't know if you have any questions, or if Ben wants to add
speak, Ben, just come up to the podium so we can hear you. I think one question would be to explain you don't have to do it now, actually don't do it now, but explain what enrollment management is, and explain what that is and why it's being included. It's in the position, but why would it be included in the grant? Also, sorry, since I raised my own hand here. Second is make clear what the fundraising return will be in return for the investment. If we invest X, what do we think the fundraising and therefore the tax reduction will be? I think those are obvious things that you would need to do. Ben?
Yeah, that was where I was going to go. Maybe start there, Marlena, talk about how much money we've in pledges we've gotten kind of in the last grant.
Yeah.
Can I just suggest that we not do that tonight? I think the purpose is really just, we're going to learn that at the meeting. Is that all right with everybody? It's just make sure to include that.
Oh, sure.
When you give it, so that we can read it, and we definitely.
Well, you're giving feedback. You want to understand what the enrollment management and how that impacts thing in the application.
We're going to want to understand it. We're going to want to understand just what you said, what the ROI. If we give you another 39,000, which is what the grant was last year, you're going to raise 41,000 or 1,041,000, and make clear that that money is going to go to reduce our taxes, in effect. So, are there other questions that we're going to ask when they come before us for real?
Marlena, are you asking if it's worthwhile to do the grant? To put in the grant?
I just wanted to make sure it was okay. I mean, just and not to put the cat out of the bag, but this year just in 23 we raised almost $1 million, and your investment was 39-ish. So I mean, it's a very high ROI for sure.
Okay.
Everyone that wants to apply for a grant should apply. You definitely should apply. There's no reason not to. It's very quick and easy. Definitely do it. Be as detailed as possible. And if you can get it in here before the next meeting, you can come back and then we can review the materials that we have on hand and give you as much help as possible and ask the appropriate questions.
Okay. That sounds good. Yeah.
At the end of this meeting, we're going to go over, there's a follow-up form that's going out to everybody that we're putting together, and we'll go through, and that will have a lot of this information that'll help you with your next grant. also and
Okay.
help us understand what happened with the last grant.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm happy to apply. The last process was not difficult. I just wanted to make sure it was within the EDC's like purview for me to apply for this funding. It's been, I mean, it has been a great investment, I think, as far as I'm concerned. So I just wanted to make sure there was no issues on the EDC side to applying. And it sounds like there's not.
Well, I mean, not in print. I think a repeat grant is better, is less good in some ways to some people than not a repeat grant.
Okay.
But that doesn't disqualify you. We've agreed explicitly that it doesn't, not just in your case, but in any case.
Okay.
You know, so there's no policy. So Todd is right. I mean, it's an easy process, and yeah. On the other hand, I will note that we've only had 4 people talk tonight, and the requests exceed our capacity for all grantees. So,
John, to be clear, is the total money you have is 70,000?
Correct.
what we've decided to allocate 70,000 to this project. The EDC
Okay.
gets to present, and we are, through a series of many public meetings, are lowering that amount year by year so that we can do things like give $500,000 to childcare providers, which we did last year, or give $150,000 to create 15 housing units like we have done over the last 18 months. So it's a self-imposed limit, but that number this year, and the select board endorsed that approach, was 70,000.
Okay.
It was
John, I just
100,000
have
last
one
year.
more question. Do you think that this request belongs in the community grant area, or is there another area of EDC funding it might have a better home
Well,
in?
that's a very good question. It's of the size where it would fit into what we call the major grants area. The problem with that is that we have said, these are self-imposed rules, but we have said that grants for major grants need to be in one of our 5 priority areas. And education we've supported education, not just with we've given, I think, close to $100,000 to the school project now. So it's obviously a priority, but it's not one of the 5 priorities that we routinely list, because it's an idiosyncratic thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think, unless we change our approach, which we're not going to do tonight, but we could always do. This is a small town and it's a small group, and we just trying to make the best decisions for Woodstock. So,
I mean, I think if you make your case as best as possible, whether or not it fits in this specter, it's out there for the community for engagement, discussion, and review. So I think that anybody who can help the town in any way, shape, or form that can come before us is a good thing. So even if it's rejected, which I'm not saying it would or wouldn't be, I haven't seen it and we haven't voted, but even if it's rejected, it creates a public awareness and an EDC awareness that is a great benefit. So I think you just go full steam and we take it from there, and hopefully you can come back at the next meeting for sure and answer any questions we might have.
and by the way, just to be clear, grantees will have a chance to answer questions at the annual meeting. It's just that Michael pointed out that there wasn't a whole lot of time to do that.
Yeah.
So we're trying to add more time.
Just in case it wasn't clear, to reiterate, the idea of this meeting was to give feedback so that you can have a better application.
Right, yeah.
That's the full
Yeah.
purpose of the
Right,
questions
so-
we're asking
right.
today.
Totally understand. I already have some very good feedback here. I was just making sure, it's just a little bit concerned with the amount that you have in community
Right.
grants and if it's the right place and other things. John, maybe you and I can connect or
Yeah.
whatever. I very much want to submit an application.
Okay, I think I've given you all the facts. Anything else would just be my one person's opinion. I'm happy to meet with anybody. But you could
Okay.
also talk to anyone else on the EDC. But the
Okay.
only facts really are what I shared tonight. So,
All
Okay.
right. Sounds good.
yeah, sorry, good luck navigating.
Yeah,
it.
thank
All right,
you.
all set.
Thanks.
Thank
All right,
you.
thanks. Okay. Next, so thank you, Michael, again for suggesting this, and thanks to the potential applicants for doing this. And this stuff takes a lot of time, and maybe we should rethink how much time we spend at our annual meeting in order to make sure we have these full discussions, because it seems again, that's the end of January. We have a little bit of time to decide that, but keep that in mind, and let's discuss that at our January meeting, which is January 4th. It's a pain in the neck, but I think it's really important to be able to have a full back and forth, and maybe we just need to make it 2 days, or we need to make it all day, or.
John, was it last year's a marathon day? I wasn't able to make
No,
it.
it was from like 9 to 2.
Oh, yeah,
Something
so
like
sure.
that. I mean, it was a long,
Yeah, but it wasn't
it wasn't 9 to midnight. I'm not
Yeah.
saying you should do that, but.
No, I'm in favor of as much time as it takes. I just didn't know because last
Right.
year I didn't make it.
Maybe 9 to 3. I mean, it's that order of magnitude.
Passwords, hit the password link.
A review of the inventory of ideas generated at the recent public meeting. So you all got, and it's posted on the website, I don't know, I didn't count, but it's probably 60 or 70 ideas. For me, it was easier to classify them into categories, and I sent that out. I'll actually put it up on the screen if I can find it.
Brainstorming ideas.
Yeah, categorized, right, but it's a PowerPoint document, so let me try to get that up and then I'll share it.
That's a PDF.
Okay, yeah, somehow I've copied all the wrong files, but I can still do it. Hold on. Where's the Zoom? Share screen. Okay, this looks like PowerPoint, obviously, but it's the same document that's posted on the website. Same, the words are the same. It's just, can I get rid of that thing on the left there? Oh, there. Sorry. So these were the categories of the ideas. And and there are 3 or 4 ideas in some, in information, there are 10 or 12. Beautification is just, better service are things like have a 5G network, keep the stores open later, expand the visitor center. Beautification is things like paint downtown buildings, redo the sidewalks, redo the green. I'm just saying these because they're not quite so obvious. Funding is we should have more tax to give the EDC more money. That's got to be a first time that anyone has proposed that, other than me. Increase the bed tax. I'm not sure what that was, but anyway. Yeah, right. No. Oh no, I know what the yeah, but no, the bed tax
There was
was
a woman who suggested that there's a place in Florida that they charge 18%.
right. But that's would be great if we could set tax rates. So that idea probably can't be pursued here. But so I just want to have one quick suggestion. We can go through these and start to say what we think are most important or not. We can offline have a kind of a vote and a tabulation and come back next time and say, oh, this is what we think, kind of rises to the top. And if we all vote independent, not vote, but if we all indicate independently and then have a discussion, just like we do with grants, we'll save a ton of time. We also could create teams based on interest and not just including EDC members by topic. So in other words, we could say 2 EDC members and 2 members of the community will spend the next 3 months thinking about the options for food. And another team will think about crowds, and another team will think about parking. And they'll take the ideas that are listed here as a starting point. They'll sort of try to prioritize them. They'll and so forth. So let's just, I think rather than trying to pick out of the 60, what are the most important, because I don't think actually, I use the word prioritization in the agenda, but I don't think we have the information to do that. Like, I don't know, whether food trucks in the East End or Sunday and Monday or financial incentives is a better way to get food trucks. And someone needs to go talk to some food trucks before we have any rational discussion. So I guess I'd like to ask for kind of a process discussion now. How do you all feel we should go about this? The end result before October, and not like September 30th, by the summer, by however much time we need to implement some of these ideas, I think we need to have decided whether or not we want to do some of these things. And roughly, if we do want to do them, roughly how much capital funds we want to put against it. Some of these ideas take no money, but so forth. So that's where we're headed. What process should we use to get there? Todd and then Deborah.
This isn't a judgment on this idea of yours at all to go through it this way. Because I'm open to anything, I really am. And a lot of the ideas were so good, I think, and a lot of them were low-hanging fruit. But in the past, we talked about that it wasn't the EDC's thing to sort of come up with the community ideas, it was to take the ideas, discuss them with the community, execute. So I feel like this would be, going away from that, which again, I'd be excited to talk about some of these things with vendors or whoever, but it's sort of making the homework project on us to come up with specific things on our own versus the community involvement. So if everyone's cool with that, I'm cool with it, but I think that's a departure from what we're used to doing. And that way, if we did depart, I would say that I think dividing up into groups with things that interest people, and then coming back with some thoughts and ideas would be a great first step.
No, sorry, Todd. I may have misspoken, or I understand your point. What I meant was, let's say you and I are the food group. This is what came up in the meeting with food. This is our mission, is to go and look at these 4 ideas, to shape them a bit, not to say those are terrible ideas, but what we think is, we want to make latkes, and that's what everyone's going to want. So we're not going to displace these ideas. I'm not suggesting we can't adjust them slightly. Someone said we should use the bridge. Maybe we should use a street next to the bridge. But that fundamentally we would be driven by all of these pages. There's a page on each of these things. Yeah. It's, all of these pages is what the mandate for a topical group would be. They may come back and say, we investigated these 4 ideas. We think this one is the best one. Here's how we would do it. Here's what it would cost. And by the way, we thought of a 5th idea. Maybe we should consider that one too. So it's very much community driven, but the community hasn't risen up to do these 60 things. I
agree, but they did in a way because we had a lot of great engagement last week. But if we're like, each of these is an entrepreneurial adventure, right? So I think a lot of people in the EDC are probably very good at that. So what would the positive outcome look like if we broke into groups? And where would you see that in 6 months from now? What would the objective be? To have a plan and procedure, to have action items we can vote on for funding for next, what would it be for?
Those things. In other words, and so for food trucks, it might be, we've investigated it. We've done a little bit of research along with 2 people from the community that were helping us.
Yeah.
We think the best thing to do is to give $5,000 guarantees to 3 food trucks.
Yeah.
And we think we can do it, or we think that Roger and we think the town manager has to do it, or we think the chamber should do it, or whatever.
Okay. So I think it's sort of like breaking the EDC into business units, and we're all going to come back and be like, here's what we think.
It's community driven. So yeah, okay. Let's keep having the discussion. Deborah.
Okay.
And
yeah,
Beth.
I get it. I'm in favor of definitely breaking into groups to handle this for sure. Yeah.
All right, Deborah and then Beth.
Yeah, I mean, it's cumbersome, but I like the idea of keeping the community involved with it. So I think to put it out and say who wants to be involved in these groups, I think it also should be divided a little bit more so that we could come back and say, these are the feasible ideas, and then be able to kind of vote, if you will, on the feasible ideas.
Okay,
once we look at it to reduce them down from the 60 to like the 20 and then go from there. So it's,
should that be a chart we vote on, Deb, you think, or ahead of time?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's our job here is to come up with feasibility, and then from there to be able to vote.
So a 2-step process in effect. So, okay, so Beth, Susie, Patrick, Greta. If you don't mind it, just we're trying.
I think that maybe one of the steps is to see perhaps what is being done, because some of these things are done. I mean, marketing as a hub, you can only shop for a day maybe in Woodstock, and you have to then send people to Mount Tom or to Randolph, to the Music Box Factory, or to Stowe, or to Simon Pierce. So, you know, that's just one of them, but
the basic idea is, as a first step,
as to just
figure out, yeah.
prioritize.
Susie, Patrick, Greta, Marion. No, sorry. It really, as a remote person, it's so much better if they can see it.
Okay, so I think what I was going to say, kind of like what Deborah said, and that is there's some low-hanging fruit, right? And so an idea might be slightly better, but it is, you know, harder to implement or whatever. So the very first thing you should do is just go through and rank which ones are easy to do.
Okay.
You know.
Agreed. Yeah, I'll put you at the end, Roger. Susie, Patrick, Greta, Marion, Roger. Patrick.
There's 60, there's a lot of things here. I don't know if, as a board, the EDC wants to try to take that on. I think it would behoove you to get community involvement, because they're going to have different perspectives than you as well. And then whittle it down to ones you think are possible. And then I would create, you know, little task forces for it, because otherwise I don't think you can handle it as an EDC.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a fair point. Greta, Marion, Roger.
Well, I was thinking another way to kind of whittle it down would be even to just bring this full list in front of Stephen Bauer and some other people and be like, which ones are just automatically, so we don't have a bunch of groups going to Stephen Bauer saying, can we get a permit for this? Is this possible? So maybe, you know, someone like Stephen and a couple other townspeople who are, you know, just getting in front of yeah, exactly, just to figure that out. But I do like the community involvement. I think that would be really great once we do have a smaller list that's split up, that everyone gets a couple people.
Okay. Marion, Roger.
Yeah, so that idea makes sense about bringing it in front of some people with expertise, but my initial thought was, while it makes sense to kind of do a culling for feasibility, I think, like, if you look at the page that was up, the food truck, I think from a lot of these, culling for feasibility requires going and asking some questions and doing research. So, like, do we know if you know, giving a base fee to food trucks will incentivize food trucks to come? We don't know if that's feasible in the EDC, so that would be the food committee could go and see what was feasible. So I just feel like a lot of the time we talk about things and we don't have enough information to make a good decision. So I think sending it out into the small groups to actually review these and do a little research and get information seems like the way to call it.
Okay, thank you. That's a good, Roger, and then Jeff.
This is not a process comment, but so if you don't want to talk about it now, I continue to think that that's something we're missing from this list, and it definitely came up in the meeting, is contextualizing the tourism economy or the tourism sector of the economy as part of the broad economy of Woodstock.
It's actually in here. It's, I apologize, but I called it non-tourism related. I knew someone was going to debate it, but measure the size of the resident economy is the main one point. And it's staying on the list.
Okay.
It's
because I think it's just very hard to understand the value of some of these ideas if we don't understand the extent to which the economy is or is not broader or narrower in terms of one sector of the economy, which we're talking about, which is what we're supposed to be talking about.
It's still on the list.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, just in terms of process, just looking at a number of the things on here and being a member of the village trustees, it's important to come to the trustees for things. The Mechanic Street lot, East End Park, the covered bridge, all of those things are things the trustees can grant permits or not. Or say, different ideas. Anyway, include the trustees in the process, I think could stop you from having to go further or say, oh, green light.
Yes.
go further.
or let us know, we're not sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I think you were just using Stephen Bauer as an example.
Yeah,
but
yeah, trustees. That's
Trustees are
fine.
probably the first.
I said Jeffrey Kahn, and they said Stephen Bauer. Jeffrey, just know that.
No, okay, Todd. Just 1 out of 5.
Well,
I think there is that question, right, of are all of these in the EDC, like, are these things the EDC should be doing? Which is kind of a different question than whether they're helpful or feasible.
well, yeah, and I think that that's going to be part of the prioritization, part of the assessment, and yeah, I mean, first of all, just to be clear, right? I mean, there's no hidden intention here to break the wall or
No, of course.
right?
But we
Right,
also
so
don't-
obviously,
we don't have, like,
but getting,
extra
but
time to-
so both legally, but also getting it from an expertise point of view and a judgment point of view.
I think John,
Right.
I think the big picture is that we've been on big picture, and this is a lot of weeds. But I think that if we're sold on big picture and big picture pools run out of money, and we still have an obligation to the community and a board, we could get into the weeds, But I think that this is just a departure of what we've been talking about. But maybe because what we've been doing has been good for the community and successful. But it's just.
Well, no, so it's interesting. So let's just compare two problems that we've had, and we've approached them in diametrically opposed ways. One is childcare and one is housing. Right? In childcare, despite the fact, and I apologize for any childcare providers who are on here or listening in or watch the recording, but at the beginning, despite our intense commitment to not do the project, right, we persevered to get someone else to do it, which were the right people to do it, who had the expertise, which were the childcare providers.
Yeah.
On the housing project, we've done the exact opposite. We have created and run the incentive programs. Yeah. And I think we made those two choices correctly. And I think in this case, we'll make them correctly as well. But I don't think we'll make them at the level of tourism issues. I think we'll make them at the level of the specific idea. Some of these things will say, hey, Jeff, this was suggested. It's totally your responsibility. We're washing our hands of it. Do with it what you will. And others, we may have to be the ones to go out and talk to the food trucks, or maybe that's an example where we wash our hands of it. But we need to figure that out. And I think so we clearly have a two-step process before we do analysis. We can't do deep analysis of 60 ideas. So we have to have a culling of these ideas, but we also can't do the culling without some knowledge. So yeah. I think what we have is sort of a two-stage process. The first stage is to create these groups with some EDC representation and some community representation, and have their job be to come back to the EDC and tell us, based on whatever information they need to gather or thinking, what they think should be investigated at the next level and what they think shouldn't be and why. And we let that process be very public, that meeting, very public. And at the end of it, Deborah's suggestion is that the EDC should be voting on that. And we would then, with public input, because there'll be people on the groups and people at the meeting, with that input, we would then say, okay, we're not going to do anything on better service, and for food, we're going to do number 1 and 2 and not do number 3 and 4. And for crowds, we're going to do number 6 and whatever. And when I say so we're going to proceed further with for now. What that means is the groups are going to go back and say, okay, now we've got to figure out exactly how much it's going to cost. We know it's feasible. We voted to make it a priority. Now let's analyze it, figure out what the numbers, so that we can come up with a proposal for funding and execution and so forth within a couple more months. And the things we don't pursue, we'll still keep on the list, and maybe there'll be a later time. So I'm going to give Susie a chance to make a comment at the podium, and then I'm going to ask the EDC members if you're comfortable with that, or if you'd like to modify it. Susie?
I would like to be on the crowd and the non-tourism related committee.
We haven't been yet, Susie, but we're going to make it in 5 minutes.
Right. All right. So are people comfortable with that process, or would you suggest? Yes. I think it's we kind of okay. Yeah. All right. So let me first start with EDC members, and let's confirm. There's not much that's going to happen in the next 3 weeks because it's sort of the holiday. So let's just go down, and each person just give the ones that you would, initially be interested in. That may end up being imbalanced. We won't finalize it until our early January meeting, but just to get an indication, I'll ask you guys first and then, do you have a comment or are you gonna? Okay, go ahead, Greta.
Food and information.
Okay, Marion.
I'm still thinking.
Okay,
I'm sorry. I said I'm still thinking. Okay.
No, you're the only person, because you said that once before in an EDC meeting. And you're the only person who's ever said at an EDC meeting that you were thinking.
We're very lucky to have him.
I just want to note that. I think it's admirable. Larry.
Food and parking. John, one of the things you haven't mentioned is that some of these would at most require that the EDC come up with a recommendation. I'm thinking, for instance, about the police presence. Is that you didn't talk about whether we want to just be in the position of making a EDC recommendation where we can't actually do anything?
No. I think there are many. I think there are many. There's every type of initiative here, ranging from we do it ourselves and don't ask anyone for expertise, all the way to we can't do any of it and it can only suggest to other people that they do it, and everything in between, every combination. So, but what we're going to do, I think what our role is to do our best to make the most impactful things happen. And that might, and the devil of who does them is that's what these groups, so the police is a perfect example. Obviously, we're not going to put on uniforms and, or force them to do it. So isn't that, I think that's implicit. I'm trying to make that explicit.
No cross guard, no community cross guards.
Right. No, Larry, are you comfortable with that? You look.
Yeah. You had said we aren't going to do something, or we are going to do something, where I think there's something in between, which is that we're just going to take a public position to other organizations that would have to do something that they can ignore or not.
No, and yes, correct. And we would go, I would go to them and say, hey, we can't do this. We'd really think, here's why we think you should do it. But then that's as far as we can go. Yeah. Okay. All right. Todd and then Deborah.
I'm going to be open to any of them because I feel like everyone's going to say food and most people might say parking or trap, whatever. So all these, I'm comfortable with any of them. Is that okay?
Yeah. Terrific. Thank you. Deborah and then Michael.
What's under general? I'm just curious what you put under general.
Stuff we didn't think of that could be a good idea later.
No.
There's specific things.
Here, general's at the bottom. ADA concerns, marketing needs metrics, and folks should use community grants to.
Okay, thank you.
So that's not, that's that general part of this page.
Yeah, I just didn't know what
funding part two is not really.
Like, it's in there.
Right.
So I would like, I will go for information, and I think traffic and safety, but I think crowds is in traffic and safety as well.
I had trouble sometimes separating those, so I'll put you down for the three, and we'll maybe combine some of these. Michael.
Yeah, I'll take traffic and safety, and then my olive branch to all of the groups, kind of like Todd is. I'm interested in all of them and willing to be helpful, especially as any of the other ones touch the East End Park, as I think our sit-in member of that neighborhood in town. So,
okay, so maybe you might cut across on some of the things that are East Endish. The thinker has thought.
I'll do better service, and I'm pretty flexible, but information is probably another place I can be helpful.
Okay. And I'm also in the I'll do any of them. And so I think actually just judging from this list that we probably can get them covered. And Susie, just since what were the ones that you said, Susan?
The crowds and non-tourism related,
the whole measurement, yeah.
And there were a couple of people who said information, so I'll do beautification.
You'll change to beautification.
Of information.
I was thinking it sort of overlaps with
Greta.
the marketing stuff.
Joe will want to do beautification too.
Information. Yeah, exactly. You can't get away from it.
Does anyone else want to volunteer? There's only.
Which one?
I'll volunteer for the metric side of it.
Okay, that's sort of what
Yeah.
Susie was suggesting as
Because
well.
it's not just contextualizing to the extent possible, but it's also defining the metrics for a communication strategy.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
And a success strategy.
Yeah, that's part of non-tourism related, or maybe it was part of general.
It was general and non-tour, whatever that.
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
Jeffrey?
I would do traffic safety.
Okay, you don't have to just because you're here. We don't want to make it a penalty.
Yes, you do, Jeffrey. Yes, you do.
No one's on bathrooms?
Well, no, some of us, there's three of us, Michael, Todd, and I, who have said, you'll do what?
I would do food to coordinate with the restaurants.
Okay.
That's anything, crowds and
Well, that's maybe better service, which is coordinating. Oh, I guess that's
whatever.
really food.
I'm happy to do whatever.
Okay, but I'll just say all. But it may be, no, it may be that you're more like the trustees or Stephen Bauer, and there's the chamber, in other words, there's
Yeah.
groups to coordinate with as opposed to, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
Beth, you're stuck with all the categories. I'm sorry.
Okay, all right, good. So let's just we can take a break for the holidays. We'll come back and I think what we'll do, well, correct me, are people okay if we solicit volunteers for these groups between now and January, so that in January, we basically can start. We'll give everybody 2 pages. We'll give the food group, as an example, we'll give them this page. Here are the ideas that the community came up with. And we'll give them a page which says, here's what you need to do with these ideas over the next 2 months. Basically, come back to what I said earlier, come back to us. In 2 months from now, we're going to ask you to narrow this list down and to the things you think need to go to a deeper dive, what you would do in that deeper dive and why you think those 2 things are most important, something like that. We'll give each of those groups two things. There'll be an EDC member, at least one, on leading the group, and off we go.
Great.
Okay. All right. Okay, back to the agenda. A discussion of, thank you, a good discussion. All right, we have 2 topics left. We have 45 minutes. So let's try to do this in 30 minutes and so forth. So a discussion of our communications platform and how we will determine the use of it and the budget for 2024. So Greta, I need to put up the document that
That'd
the
be great.
2 slides. Is that the one?
Yeah, do you, yeah.
No, I can do that. If I can find them, I can do it. Oh, God. Do you have it?
I have it from,
Wait, no, I emailed it to you, so I have it.
Yeah.
Am I still sharing?
I love Zoom because I can see John's looking for something face if we want to screenshot that.
But you don't, can you see, you can't see my desktop right now?
I
okay?
see your face and that's I'm looking for something. I can't find it, but I know it's here.
do you want me to tell you what it's titled?
No, it's in my email. Hold on.
We get to see you in multiple screens, John.
Yes. He's thinking about it, Marion. He's thinking about it.
I'm not thinking. I never think.
Hit the password button.
I thought it was weird that John did this every single meeting with the camera like, right up the nasal gaze.
He's
went
such
to
a ham,
zoning
Michael.
meeting.
He's such a ham.
I went to a zoning meeting last night and got to see them do it as well. I was like, wow, everybody gets to do this apparently.
What I want to see, I want to watch on Zoom. I can't remember if this ever happened to me. I don't think it did. I want to watch someone on Zoom eat corn on the cob.
Yeah.
Why?
Just that to me is like the ultimate extreme of an inappropriate behavior. That doesn't get into.
I may or may not have been in a Zoom meeting where someone took out their electric razor
Oh yeah,
and started shaving.
I might have
during
done
the meeting.
that.
I may have been in a meeting. Someone did that.
I think Jeffrey too, but really said.
I think we need to be more transparent with the public. John said there's 45 minutes left. He had 30 minutes to work on some EDC items and 15 minutes to look for an email.
Right.
Corn cob jokes.
Sorry guys, I
here every night.
Is it on that PDF?
no, I got it. It's
Susie, can you help him, please? Susie,
No,
please.
I found it. I'm sorry.
So I'll just start
Yeah, go ahead.
because it's going to be brought up. I believe the first slide we're going to talk about is the next few months. Yes, there we go. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is breaking down how we're going to go over the process. In February is when we have some budget decisions to be made. And so tonight we're going to focus on summary of what's been going on in our reseeding marketing group efforts, and also discuss our goals and potential goals for the communications platform. And then next meeting, we'll go into deeper dive of exactly what we've been doing with our marketing firm. We'll finalize the goals after our discussions and have an in-depth briefing on the platform operations. So that's going to be kind of when we get into the nitty gritty. And then February is going to be, you know, decision time and presenting other options. So if you don't mind going down, we can talk about some of the recent marketing efforts to get started. So I'm newer to the marketing side of things. I'm transitioning in as Patrick has transitioned out. And what I will say is that there are a lot of really wonderful community members working on this. There's a lot of work that has been done around the clock, around, you know, all times of year. And we are lucky to be working with the agency we're working with, and we've been getting a lot done. So I would say that I've been surprised by how much time is spent by local community members and the EDC. You know, Patrick's been doing a great job continuing on with his volunteering. So we're super lucky to have him still. So as far as just some things as of late, we are happy with some of our efforts going towards exposure for local businesses. Specifically, just want to bring up what was done in the aftermath of the July floods. You know, there were a lot of local businesses whose business took a nosedive. A lot of local lodging establishments were receiving tons of cancellations. You know, the inn had to close for an extended period of time, and it was definitely time for all hands to be on deck. And so there were some initiatives that were put forth, you know, bringing, Deb did a great job doing some videos about Woodstock being open. And we used our platform, our marketing and communications program, to be able to really get the word out to our email list and execute some really targeted communications to make sure people knew we were open and please come visit. We were in good shape. Also, Small Business Saturday was a really wonderful initiative that was executed via email over the course of a couple of weeks leading up to, or just actually the week in advance of Small Business Saturday, which is the Saturday that follows Black Friday and Thanksgiving. And that was really well done. A lot of local businesses got on board. And I think it was a really great way for them to realize how they could be directly involved with our communications. And so hopefully there will just be more of that going forward. And so there was a gift giving guide going directly towards the businesses in our community that have an e-commerce platform. So the email came through. It was a really well done email, and it said, support these businesses. And it had, you know, suggestions from each of the shops, but also just their links so people could shop through their whole website. And that had really great open rates, is from what we've been told. And then exposure for local nonprofits. We had Giving Tuesday, which was very similar initiative. And that was, I wish I could remember if any of the marketing group people here remember exactly what it said, but it was really, the title of it was something nice like, be a part of Woodstock's future, or something in a way that, you know, talked about all the things that these wonderful organizations are doing for our community. And it was their opportunity to be a part of that. And so to be able to give from afar, which was great. So that was another really great initiative. And then as far as exposure for local events, when we talked to our team from the agency yesterday to go over our quarterly reports on things, it was clear that a lot of the highest open rates from emails are definitely emails regarding events. So these 3 events, specifically Taste of Woodstock, TEDx, and Wassail. The Wassail emails are, you know, very, they have a really great rate as far as people opening the email and then clicking through and engaging more on our website. They also said that immediately, you know, through a lot of these emails that they're looking at, they're going directly to the events page on our website, which is key. This shows us a lot that people who are being included in this group of, you know, that we're targeting, who are likely to come and stay and visit and increase our tourism revenues, they're definitely looking for things to do. So the
Hey,
more we
Greta?
can focus. Yeah,
Can I add a couple comments in?
sure.
The Small Business Saturday, the idea was, if you can't come to Woodstock, we'll bring Woodstock to you. So the idea was to have business be able to get business from afar, basically. Similar thing with the nonprofits. And then that was a new test that we developed as part of the platform, to be able to have local businesses participate, as well as the nonprofits. And then the same kind of spin was for the local events. We tested 2 different approaches. One was a specific Woodstock event, i.e. Taste of Woodstock. The other was a non-necessarily town event, but one that was in town, i.e. TEDx. And then Wassail, you know, we continue to do. The rates of opening of our emails and stuff on these events was huge traction on that. And so it really showed us that between the business side of it and the event side of it, that the program is very effective at helping to drive these different things. So it's actually now set up that we can have any number of, well, a certain number of businesses as we limit our emails, so we're not having people opt out, but we can have businesses and events now participate much more strongly than we were doing before.
Hey, Patrick, I talked with Greta this afternoon, and she was saying that it was like a really good open rate for TED, and that it was like, that was one of your highest. It would be great for me to know the date on that, because sure. I think for you to get the information of how many people visited my site that day, and then how many emails I garnered.
Grab me offline. I can give you, I can get that. If I don't have it, I can get you that.
But also that would be helpful for you guys to know, because then you know what the result was.
Yep. No, absolutely.
Okay.
And then do you mind scrolling down?
Yep.
So if anyone has any questions or comments on that, we can definitely go there. But I also just want to talk about some of the ideas that we were brought up on the list that we just spent a good amount talking about, the community brainstorm. A lot of these really can be brought into our goals with our communications program for 2024, and you know, could be part of the budget that we're deciding on in February. So and you can just see the list here. So if you have any, at the bottom, these are also some ideas that came about in our meetings, our specific marketing group meetings, and it would not be difficult to pivot just like part of our communications efforts to really make sure that we're looking to attract potential employees. We've got some good ideas of things to do on the website, you know, for full-time residents, things like that, that take the tax, you know, might lower the tax burden, and then recruit restaurant owners and food trucks, et cetera. So the communications program that we've been working with, that has been really geared towards getting largely visitors to come, can be used in several ways. So
if I can just emphasize that this is I think the reason why we're calling it a communications platform is I think we are trying to, and we need to, as an EDC or as a community even, pretty much de-link completely the platform from what we use the platform for. For the platform, the choice we have is whether to have an in-house person doing digital outreach and in reach, or whether to use the platform. That's the choice we have. The platform is much more effective and more expensive. And then what's that? And then the choice we have on the goals is independent of that. We can have either of those two approaches, and maybe there's something in the middle, by the way, but it's hard to have it. And we could use it, either of those platforms, for any of these things. So for example, if you were a person who responded to the survey saying we have to have fewer visitors, no visitors, but I would vote to keep the platform and use it fully to attract full-time residents.
Or to tell people not to come.
Or to tell people not to come, right? Or whatever it is we want. But the point is that we are going to have in February 2 choices, not one. And by the way, these choices, this is not something that we're in conflict with Class 4 about. They're the ones who told us, you need to tell us what the goal of the platform is. And we'll tell you, and I think everything that's on this list, I mean, we're gonna, in the schedule, I want to go end this discussion with the schedule again, just for 2 minutes, but in January, we'll ask Class 4 and Charles to say, okay, you asked us in this meeting, you said, these were the 3 of the 7 things you wanted it to do. Those are all, that's doable. Just tell us what the split is and we'll spend a third of our time on one, So we really have 2 choices to make in February. To fund either the Class 4 platform or to temporarily, I think, or maybe permanently, but it's certainly our decision would be temporarily to use a lower cost, homegrown effort in order to buy us time to finish the investments in the tourism infrastructure that we just talked about, or to keep going and then separately from that, if we keep either way, what do we want those resources to do? What do we want? So it's really
John, understanding that the difference in cost between having an agency do it and an independent person is not that different.
No, hold on one second. That we're gonna get those 2 proposals in February, and we're gonna be able to compare the costs, and we will. I'm encouraging Greta to give us a modular proposal on the low-cost in-house one, which means, so for example, we just do fewer things. They're not equal. They're not going to be equal in what they accomplish. They're not going to be equal in the scope, and they won't be equal in the cost. And we might say we want the in-house person to do everything that Class 4 is doing, and we'll add up the costs, and it'll be a little bit more than Class 4 and much less effective. Hopefully we won't pick that, right? But we also have the option, and the only reason for picking this option is because we think we need to spend $1 million on bathrooms or $3 million on a parking garage. And we're not gonna know that for a while. So all I'm saying, I'm just laying out, we're going to have options in February. The one thing we wanted to have that we didn't have last year were more options. We're gonna have those options. We're gonna have them in February. Before then, we don't need to talk about it. We're just committing to have those options. One second, I just want to, so that's the process that we're going on. And to have the Class 4 options properly, we need to give them some guidance on what we want the goals to be. So tonight, we just need to spend the rest of the time saying, what do we think of these things, or are there 1 or 2 other things, or other things that we want to say? What would we want them to do if we were to put the platform in? Susie and Roger have had their hands up, but
Todd as well.
Yeah, no, I'm going to call on Todd in 1 second. But can you just make
sure? Jennifer Vincent as well.
All right, so all right, Todd and then Jennifer. But the discussion, just very brief comments, please. What I don't want to do tonight is talk about things other than what the goals should be, because we that's what we need to do. We'll have the debate.
Could you go back to the first slide again?
Yeah.
So this is my opinion, but I think you are deliberately setting up a false paradigm here.
Okay.
There are not 2 ways to do what essentially I see you proposing is keep going and doing what we're doing with rejiggering priorities to some extent, or stop doing anything essentially. It's not a question
No.
of whether or not you're going to go forward with a marketing program. It's not a question of choosing a lesser value marketing program. It's a question of finding the right resources for doing what Woodstock needs to do. You cannot continue to fund a program at a third of your budget.
We're going to have a session in February.
Okay, but I think the paradigm you're setting up is either or, and I would argue that by getting back to the fundamentals of marketing communications and the fundamental tools of marketing communications, whether that's Class 4 or another agency, is not bringing the whole thing in-house. It's setting up a different kind of program that's much more cost effective. So that's my opinion.
It may very well be. No, it may very well be. Just go to the podium and just a brief comment, but
yes, but you keep saying it's either going to be Class 4, we're going to bring it in-house. You know, that's what you have said.
okay, sorry.
Opining, we're just opining that. That's not.
We could, sorry.
Because there's a lot of other options. Beth has a great list. She got a lot of respondents from,
Okay.
you know, and there's also cheaper platforms. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're talking about two options.
Okay, I think,
Setting out
sorry,
a great middle.
sorry. Okay, I was sort of being practical.
Okay.
But let me be impractical for a moment. In the February meeting, I'm happy to consider any proposals that are sufficiently detailed and for us to approve funding them from any source. So, for example, if someone wants to come in February and make a proposal that says this will cost X, here's how we will do it, and here's the resources to do it, that's fine. I'm as a practical matter. I don't think.
Are you talking about an agency?
I don't want to.
Because the thing is that like, you know, Class 4 can continue to do it. They can also opt for a lower cost platform. They have, like, they're using the Cadillac of platforms. Now, when I raised that issue, you know, they're like, no, we can't do that, but maybe that's an option that you can use.
We've asked them and they've, sorry, I appreciate this input. I understand the input. I think the point is right. There are more than two options for us to consider.
And options that are potentially of equal or greater value.
Obviously, if we would consider them, there are many options for us to consider of ranges of value. The options that we're talking about.
Somebody from the community has to come forward, has to do that work.
I'm just simply saying I agree that there are multiple options. Okay. I think what we need to do tonight, for sure, what I know for sure is this: if we don't know where we want to go, we won't get there. And so I think what we want to talk about is where we want to go. And so I think, so if we could have, in particular, let's start with the EDC members. So Jennifer, sorry, I know you had your hand up. Did you want to talk about where we want to go or?
No, I wasn't gonna go there, but I was, I think the way you proposed it with like what would happen with the two options in February was very confusing on like, how would there be other RFPs in the system? Like, you know, so I think that's where it seems like it's going, a lot of people have those same questions. So maybe we just need to clarify that a little bit better.
Okay.
John, I can come in here because I want to get a thought into, but Jennifer, it's a great point. What happened was over the last 2 years of public meetings, we've built something and funded something that has come to a place where it costs a certain amount to operate or it doesn't operate. So over the last 6 months, and what I wanted to sort of start with is that Greta has taken amazing time and energy to lay this out for not only the public, but ourselves to understand where we can go from here. So the great thing about it being confusing is, yes, you're right. And that's why we're talking about it now. And what John maybe mistakenly said two things. It's really, hey, we're at a crossroads and we need to understand, to Roger's point or Susie's point to your point, what do we have to go with? What does it mean for money we spent in the past? And what does it mean for where we go in the future? So it's very open and very, it's a wide open situation, but we've already invested in something. So do we cut and run?
Todd, Jennifer's on the marketing working group.
I'm very close to it.
But maybe the public isn't. It's a recorded meeting, so that's great.
Yeah,
that's a great point. That's a great point.
All right. Okay, I think I think proceeding with just these goals is not feasible until we hash out what's sort of been raised. I think the question for EDC members, and this is just for EDC members, is if at the end of February, if in our February meeting, if we are not comfortable with the options that are presented to us in that meeting, and what I can tell you for sure is that there will be an option from Class 4, and that there will be an option that I was describing as lower cost, probably narrower in scope and in-house. Those correctly are not any, there's an infinite number of options, but as a practical matter, there are real other options. If we don't have options that we're comfortable with at the end of February, are we prepared to face the one thing that we said we would not face, which is a choice between telling Class 4 to keep doing what they're doing or telling them to stop? If we are prepared to do that, then we don't have any, as a practical matter, any real time pressure. I mean, obviously we want to move as quickly as we can. If we're not prepared to make that choice, then the most important criteria we can have is, let's not let the perfect become the enemy of the good. We have 2 months to ensure that we have reasonable choices to make in February. So how do we feel about that? If avoiding what we said we wanted to avoid is the most important thing, is one path. If we're willing to make that, and by the way, there is one possibility which releases some of the pressure, which is that for the first time, I think Class 4 said that they might be willing to work on a kind of a rolling basis. If we give them 3 months notice or something of that sort, it's something that they could consider.
It's something that
they haven't committed to it.
Right.
They have not committed to it, because I understand. I mean, I've been in their position. It's a horrible way to do business from both their part and ours. So that's really the way we proceed. Really is going to come down to that. I don't want. We can predict I'm thinking only about the meeting in February. And so, Todd, what's your point of view about that?
Okay, I have 2 things that are important. One is, again, I want to just recognize Patrick. I love you. You're brilliant. You were really bad at explaining this. Greta's really good at it in her group. So I've evolved on the process of what this is and what it offers. And secondary to that first point is that I've invested in many things, many companies, failed, won. I'm not interested in throwing it away because Roger says it's a bad idea. But when Roger says it's a bad idea, Roger, I'm just making a thing here. When Roger says it's a bad idea, why, where? What does it cost to change it? How does it affect the community? So for me, I think that whatever I want to see in this next thing to be able to decide whether we move forward with Class 4 or option B, C, D, E, or F, the most important thing to me as an EDC member is making sure our website works. Because I've had plenty of people, my own mother, go to the website and not understand what Woodstock is. So for me to continue something, I feel like it needs to have that component. And Greta, I hope that something will be in there in one of the choices so that we can address that issue for the generation that just types Woodstock and clicks on the first thing in the SEO.
Okay, good. Thank you. Those are good points. But what do we
need to continue it. We can't throw away our investment. How do we continue to invest is the decision, right? We can't say no.
No, we can. We've just done it. We have compete. We no longer have a surplus. We have to live on what we earn each year. Right? We have a new set of needs that we don't have to meet. We can't meet all the needs. We have a continuing set of old needs. Now the childcare hopefully has diminished for some period of time, maybe permanently. We have to, and I've said this for 4 years, and now we've reached the point. The only time we're gonna have to make tough decisions is when we run out of money. Guys, we've run out of money. We can't do all the things that we want to do at the level that we want to do them. So I'm just anticipating that's gonna happen. I'm telling you this. So, I mean, you could disagree, but that's my view. Marion?
At the risk of bringing us back to the original conversation and not the place we've diverted to, I think essentially you know, what we're trying to do, or what John was trying to do, or I don't know what he was trying to do. What I think we should do is separate, as he said, the means, the method, the tactics from the goals.
Exactly.
And so they're two different conversations. And what
Yeah.
we were trying to look at here is, what are the goals? Which, you know, for me, the thing to do is to say, what are the goals first? And then what are the appropriate tactics to reach those goals? And so what we're trying to do with this list that's on the board right now is have a conversation about, you know, if we feel as the EDC that the biggest challenge for local businesses is getting employees, would it make sense to make our goal, can we help recruit new employees? Or might it be, you know, that's one of the possibilities. So I think that's what we're trying to do here.
It was. Well, let me see in the spirit of trying to do that. And I want to keep this to EDC members first for the moment, because we have to give some direction to class 4 and to ourselves if we're going to create this, you know, a plan B. I would propose that we say that our goals are twofold: to market the slower times of the year and to use our platform to attract new full-time residents. And I would say we should not do anything that isn't those two things. So we should stop doing anything that's not that, and spend and instruct our tool, whether that's whatever group of people and tool we're using, to do those two things. And the way we would measure those two things are, in the slower times of the year, we would use, for the moment, we'd use number of visitors at the chamber, and the number and our population, and the EDC revenues during those periods of time. So just to put a stake in the ground. So let me just ask other EDC members, even off the top of your head, you don't have to make it, it's not a vote. What would you say from this list, or something other than this list? What would you say you would want to prioritize? You're still thinking, I'm sure. No, are you?
I am thinking, but I can spit something out that I might change my mind on. Because we're, you know, this is the great thing about this committee, is I change my mind sometimes because people say smart things that make me change my mind. But I guess I have a true question. If we're trying to attract full-time residents and we have a housing shortage, is that feasible? I would like to understand that more. And then in terms of marketing at the slower times of the year, I would be interested in looking at events.
Okay.
Me too.
Specifically, you know,
Marketing events.
Events, and maybe some of the existing events that don't have, you know,
All right, so
I think that events carries a marketing aspect beyond the day and date of the event. Like, people can still talk about TEDx, still talk about, oh, that wassail weekend in Woodstock. It could be June when they're talking about it. I think it's great.
and I would emphasize events, maybe not in the peak times.
We can attract new full-time residents if they build a home. So attracting people to build homes is we could narrow that down.
And that's actually one of the things that we talked about specifically in the marketing work. The working group is just having a way to target people who would be interested or already have the interest, and then kind of like shepherding them through the process and making it more of like an ambassador situation. But to your question, I don't necessarily think that this list of goals needs to be whittled down. But so you just want to know, like, if
so you would say that we would want to do all of these things.
I think it's fair to say, yeah, we want to do all of these things.
Yeah.
And it's doable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I agree.
All right, Deborah.
Patrick, I think you were first. Do you want to, or do you want me
Well,
to?
Deborah, I'm trying to get PDC members just first, and then I'm going to open up. Susie,
okay. Yeah. Okay.
Patrick wants to say something.
I think because this also fits in with the EDC, you know, and bringing more money into the EDC is the top three, you know, bringing people into the slower times of the year helps the economy, building a larger, vibrant region. The events help do that. So the first three, but I don't think, as Greta said, it's a finite list. I think, but focusing on the top three inevitably makes the bottom three happen. If it's vibrant, if there are things going on, you're going to attract more restaurant owners, you're going to attract more residents, people are going to be able to get more employees and et cetera, et cetera. But I think, but just to help us like kind of narrow our focus as far as what we do, I think the top, you know, focusing on the top three, and then the bottom three will be the natural kind of outgrowth. That's my feeling.
Okay, who hasn't? Larry?
I have a hard time disconnecting money with the goals. I can look at each one of those and say, wow, that sounds like a good idea. Do I want to pay $100,000 for that is another question. So it's really hard for me to make that judgment call. So, I mean, if my answer to that question orients us towards one type of marketing program versus another, that would be unintentional. I don't want to do that. One of the things, obviously, one of the issues that we've been looking at have to do with the numbers of people that come into our town and how to make the experience better, and not to antagonize or whatever the residents, etc. You know, I think a really seminal issue is when we go out and market, are we trying to get more people into town? And if we get more people into town, does that negate some of the advances that we have made with the other things that we're looking at? So I just have a hard time answering the question outside of the context of cost.
Okay, well,
if you wanted to, in a perfect world, sure, let's do them all.
Well, let me reframe the question, because I think what you're saying is that if you vote for anything on this list, it means that you want to spend money on the thing you voted for.
Yep.
And so let me say that that is explicitly not what we're asking.
Mm-hmm.
We are not making any decision whatsoever to spend any money on any of this. What we are trying to do, because is to say, if we were to spend money on anything, where would we spend it? And we will have to decide in February, given what we know in February of our other needs, where we'll know a little bit more. And we're doing this in February, unfortunately, because that's when the funding runs out. And if we had a choice, we would do this in July, when we knew what our other needs were. So the latest we can do it is in February, unless we're prepared to stop the platform for a period of time, so forth, which is, so that's when we're going to have to decide whether to spend any money. In order to know whether to spend the money, we need to know what the money is going to be spent on. So for example, if there were another bullet here which said, get the maximum number of people that we can possibly get, all of whom want to drive up Cloudland Road. Let's get everyone interested in taking a picture of the farm. I think we could say we want to do that or we don't want to do that, separate from whether or not we should spend money on it. So you don't have to vote. I'm just saying that you don't have to indicate, but we are separating the point of spending the money versus what we would spend it on. So.
John, Patrick's waving his hand pretty hard there.
Yeah, well, so Susie, all right, so Larry, jump in if you would like to add anything. We'll call on you if you raise your hand, but in the meantime, then Susie and then Patrick briefly. Yeah, go ahead.
So I would ask that you ask class 4 if they could look at porting over as one of the options. They can port over the email list to a cheaper non-Klaviyo. There's lots of really good stuff available. So that could be a third option. It's very doable. Also, I think, a lot of these things, the town is sending out stuff on Substack now. Yeah. So they've got that going on. You've got Beth's email communication going on. There's a lot of consolidation that you could do that could benefit everybody. So that should be another thing that you look at, because, Substack is actually a really good system.
Yeah. Patrick?
Okay, couple things. Remember that one of the things that we're able to do is turn things up or down. We had the floods in July. The businesses were down 20%. We asked for the additional funding to do more ads and so forth. And Woodstock had one of the best foliage seasons ever, given that foliage was terrible. And not only that, I had businesses coming up to me at the beginning of November saying people were still coming. So we can turn this up or down. So the idea of, marketing slower times, is an easy thing to do, and is very, very simple and can be very effective. I think we need to definitely consider events. I spoke with the gentleman who ran the comedy festival, and he actually dinged us on Instagram for the town not helping him. He brought in national comedians in November when we're slow, and we didn't help him much. Luckily he sold everything out, but he does an event in August where we don't have any big events, in November. So I think events is something that we should definitely look at, which is one of the tests that we did this year. And then I think direct help of the businesses is also something that we should focus on, because when people voted for the 1% tax, they voted on that 1% tax to help the businesses do better. And whether we help them do that during slower times or busier times, that can be determined. Those are the things that we're trying to do with this. And then the added benefit is the communication aspect of this, that the platform is there to speak to different groups in different ways. And to Susie's point, Klaviyo was not that expensive compared to some of the other systems, compared to what we're doing and how we're measuring things. At the end of the day, we're only doing things that we know work, and that's the benefit of having a company like Class 4. We're using, a half a dozen people within their company who have all different expertise to maximize our spend on our marketing. And if you do an individual person, that's not going to be quite as efficient, because there's unless you can find a unicorn who knows everything about, all of the aspects of what we're doing. So just those are things we need to keep in mind. But I would definitely focus on the first three things for sure. But I agree with Greta that we can do them all.
Unless it's, we're not going to talk any further about what tool we want to use. I'm sorry, if you have a different comment.
I'm just responding to comments.
I understand. No, you're not I'm sorry. I wasn't directing that at you, Patrick. I was trying to move forward. But if you have a comment that isn't about the tool we should use.
I don't have any opinion on what database you use, except it should be cheap. I think it's a false paradigm to say you're bringing it in-house or you're not bringing it.
Okay.
So that has nothing to do with the platform. That is to say that there are other ways of approaching.
There absolutely are. We agree. There are. Okay. The question is, we can't develop them. And so we can't develop them by February 7th or February 3rd. Let me be very explicit. We can't develop a rational proposal by February 2nd, except for these two, in my opinion. So, but I could be wrong. If I'm right, we're going to have, well, actually, maybe it doesn't really matter for me to make a prediction. It doesn't matter. February 7th will happen.
John, really quickly, is there going to be another potential for a stopgap vote like we had in the past years?
There wasn't, last year, there was not an option for a stopgap vote. Class 4 told us that there were two options.
What about this year?
This year, they might, by the way, when I'm not trying to throw Class 4 under the bus. I've been on their side of the table and doing proposals. You can't operate the way we wanted them to operate. Yeah. It's not a good way to run a business for us or for them. So it's totally defensible. They have indicated a possibility of a stopgap measure. We don't know if they can or not. Clearly, we don't know if they can or not.
But by the next meeting, we're going to know what that
we may or may not know by the next meeting.
And hopefully we do, because we have to make the decision.
We're going to work on.
We are going to have to make a decision whether there's a stopgap measure or not. Right? I think inadvertently, without much discussion, we've not disagreed with this list. And several people, more than one or two or three, have suggested, in effect, that these are all good things, that even, that these things don't go against fixing some of the problems that we, that we experience, or that the community is telling us that they've experienced. So despite spending very little time on this, it seems like it would not be unreasonable to say to class 4, these are the 6 things we want to do. We'd like to focus on the first 3. We think the first 3 lead to the last 3, but fundamentally, these are things that we would like to accomplish. Tell us how you would use the platform, and give us a proposal in February for how you'd use the platform to do these 6 things. Is this something we need to vote on to push these 6 things through with Greta's group, or it's just riffing on it? Well, no, I think we should, let's vote on that. I think that's, I mean, I'm just trying to kind of get a sense. I would support these 6 things. So if we're going to vote on it, I would say that, we should do it. Well, why don't you make the motion? Fine. So I'll make the motion. Then that we basically instruct both class 4 and Greta and anyone else. We can talk about the anyone else, but that if anyone who we instruct that these are our goals for 2024. Second. All right. Is there any discussion about that?
Sorry, I hate to do it. Sorry. I would like to have some priorities. I would like to say that the top 3 are our priorities and the bottom 3 are secondary.
All right. Okay.
That's what
time for discussion, Marion.
I think my only concern is if we really, I would want to see from the local businesses, but if we really still feel that getting employees is one of the biggest struggles they have, I don't know that the first 3 will help with that. So I do think that
or the 6th one, frankly.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't. Sorry, I'm thinking.
Well, by the way, we don't have to, we can table this motion. We don't have to, I understand why people are hesitating. I think it'd be great to give them some direction is what
I mean,
it'd be great to
give them some direction around getting potential employees is something very specific, I mean, it's
well, one thing we could do, one way, okay, the fundamental problem we have before we get to debating what we should actually do is we don't have enough time to make these decisions properly. That's the problem. That's what I'm pushing on. But hold on a second. I think there's a way for us to gain more time. Why don't we just ask class 4 if they could do any of these things? Maybe we've already asked that. Or ask them to do the 6. And they can whittle it down for us, which would go to Deb's point of if they say, Deb, look, we can only do these or that, it might fill into the others, right? Let's ask them which ones they can do. Let's simply say that and they'll come back and say, we can't get food truck people. That's ridiculous. Okay, fine.
I don't see them saying they couldn't use the communications program towards these initiatives. I just don't.
Well, if that's the case, then we don't have to decide this tonight. We can continue to discuss it. We can ask the questions that we're talking about.
I think if we went to them with these 6 goals, that they could respond with how they would work on them, and we can then rank them later, knowing what the actions would be.
Fine. Okay.
So, well, then Deb, that would go and mean that we're okay with all these 6 things, and we're waiting for their feedback to say if there's specific issue with one of the 6. Would that
I think I'm just going with we have less money. We want to be more streamlined in what we're doing. Therefore, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at everything that we're doing as costing something. So I'm looking at this and saying, we have other things that we're looking at doing over here. Do we really want to build a campaign about getting food trucks in when we're going to be working on it over here? I'd rather have the money going towards something else. Do we really want to be putting money in marketing to getting full-time residents when there's no place for people to live or to buy anything? I'd rather spend that money, in one of the first 3 or 4, because I understand what you're saying about potential employees. That made sense to me. So, again, I'm looking at it going, okay, maybe it's the first 4 instead of the first 3. So I don't.
Well, I think then we should just table the motion. So just for now. So because we're not ready to I mean, these are reasonable questions to ask, right? So I haven't looked over there, sorry.
I just don't want to waste any money on
All right,
it, knowing
Jeff
we have
briefly and then
less.
Susie. And
So
briefly.
sorry, guys.
Boy, what a mess.
Yeah,
To
absolutely.
me, it seems like you guys have done a really good job of putting together possibilities that pivot in both in terms of exploring and trying to create a better environment for residents, visitors, and businesses, and pivoting platform to do some things it hasn't done and changing some of its directions. I think those are both terrific. I think you shouldn't hesitate to go forward. But I do think that it will take probably the same amount of money that the EDC is. I would want to make a comment about this. I mean, I go back to the beginning, and the other comment was made on that. I just have to say, the economic development, if you have a pie, it's got to be one of your primary expenditures. Not all of it, of course, but one of it. And no matter what the EDC decides, it's going to take a chunk of money. I think what you've got there in terms of pivoting and in terms of improving the quality are great ideas to move forward with without hesitation. That's my thought.
Okay, all right, thank you. Just come to the podium so they can hear you, sorry.
So, I mean, last week we had a big meeting where everybody was talking about, we have too many tourists and we don't have a good quality of life and we have quality of life issues.
Some people were saying, all right.
Yeah, some people, it's not
Well,
everybody.
certainly people from the community, not merchants, but people from the community where this is. Okay, so, but now you're saying like marketing during slower times of the year, that just doesn't make sense to me because like that woman, Lisa Lalo, whatever.
Yeah.
Said, she's like, well, everybody knows that, you only get your town in May, and it's sort of like, are you working against,
Are we working against what we heard last week? Yeah, I understand. Okay.
Who keeps lowering my hand?
Not me. So no, your hand is up again.
I'm sorry. It's just one of the things we have to remember too. Where does our budget come from? Our budget comes from spending in the town. We have to remember that. And so, your budget comes from the 1% tax. Where does the 1% tax come? It comes from sales of lodging, food, restaurants. It's so just, so the more and there are
we're not
just keep that in mind.
Yeah, we're not here to talk about that.
I have to respond.
No, please don't. It's okay. I've responded to it many times. Let me just say, no, it's not an outrageous thing to say, but let me just say that the voters and then in the interim, the select board determine what the purpose of the EDC is, not the comments in these meetings by me or anybody else.
Good. No, we still do have the motion on the table.
Yeah, I think I made the motion. I don't know what Robert's Rules of Order is. Can we table? Because the person who makes. How do we table a motion?
I think you just withdraw it, John.
Oh, fine. I withdraw the motion then. So I withdraw the motion. We've sort of reached the end of our time. I think that, and maybe the limits of our productivity, but I think that I think there's, and I talked about the schedule on the assumption that we had to give class 4 some guidance about the things on this page or similar things.
As we should.
No. Sorry. I left out a word. Tonight. We needed now to give them guidance so that they could, by February, give us a proposal that was doable and that would meet our goals. To Jeff's point, many of these goals, maybe not all of them, if Susie's comment is right, or we agree with it, or maybe all of them, but this isn't far off from what we would want to do. Deborah is asking some specific questions about setting priorities.
Don, can I put something on the table then? Say that this is a working list so that you can give it to them?
Right, no, exactly. Yeah, right. So I think what we do is-
I'm fine with that, like to say that
right. These were the 6 things. We didn't think of anything else. We want to make sure that you can do these 6 things. You know, that's, maybe you've already sort of done that, but maybe you just sort of formally do that. And that we're going to talk about this again at the next meeting, and maybe even the next meeting after that. And so, you know, maybe we can agree on 3 of these for sure, and the other 3 we still have to discuss, and that's fine. In February, sorry, Larry, I'll get you in 1 second. Oh, sorry. Well, go ahead, Larry. Why don't you go now, and then I'll comment. You're muted, but.
I was just curious as to you don't have a general marketing option in there. You have an marketing for the slower times of the year. Are we implicitly suggesting not marketing for the other times of the year?
Yes.
Okay.
John,
That's what this page is. That's what this page is suggesting.
John, that's not true, because if you market for the events.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. You know, that's right. Building out the events, correct. The events would be in those times of years, and the hub would be in those times of the years.
Okay, but those are very specific. This is not. We are not including just the general marketing of Woodstock.
Well, the goal. First of all, no one is recommending this page. This page was a list of ideas that had come up. I think they came up in the context of the meetings and the feedback that we've gotten from the community. But no one is recommending this until we're the ones to recommend it. That slide was just put together by Greta and me. Oh, Greta and I have had these discussions, and these are the things that came up. But I do think that
I'm perfectly happy with it. I just wanted to make sure. I didn't want it to be just implicit.
Can we do a special meeting with Con coming again and talk? I know it's hard because they get reamed. Can we do a special meeting and just talk on this issue? Can we do that? Because there's not enough time, because you said 2 meetings, but really February's D-Day. That means there's 1 meeting of more discussion than it's that meeting and decision. So
I think the question is to whether class 4 would add value to that.
I would ask for this. I would ask for this then. Can they come and just riff with us on the universe and just have a public forum where no decisions are made, where we can spend an hour and call it an hour and have rules of whatever we need to do to make it cordial.
John, isn't that next month? Isn't that what's on the schedule?
Well, we've got a lot of.
It's a big agenda.
A big agenda, yeah.
Okay.
All right. So, but I think, okay, is it fair to say that this page is not far off? We have some questions about it, and we need to make we need to make sure that when we start spending money again, that the money is focused on the things that we want it to be focused on. So we have a few months to figure out a more refined version of this page. It's not going to be radically different.
We have 2, but yes.
2 months. Yeah, we have 2 months to make a more refined version of this page. It's not going to be radically different. It might take off. Yeah, it's not going to be radically different. So I think, to Jeff's point, I think, and again, even if we take 1 item off of there, there's still, this page is getting close.
Jennifer has her hand up, John.
So, yeah. So let's share it with class 4 and just tell them that's where we got to tonight, and we'll keep getting to it. Todd, we can consider whether or not we need to have an additional meeting. Jennifer?
Yes, I just wanted to say, like Larry made a very good point. Like, these are our initiatives for next year, but we also still have to maintain our social media presence, our email database, and content going out to our database. Just if it's all about events, that's fine too. But like, there is still some maintenance that will have to be, if we wanted to get into real details. Social media is very important.
And the website.
Yeah.
So I think we need to make explicit what we would be doing, and that some of our communications, I guess inadvertently you'd almost say, but necessarily, not necessarily because of the objective, but necessarily because of the tactics of marketing. Like, you can't just send emails in June or July.
There's got to be a sort of infrastructure line item, right? And like what the base is for the pipes and all that, right?
No, but Jennifer is talking about messaging now, not infrastructure. Jennifer is basically saying that we're going to be sending out pictures of beautiful farms or beautiful trees in September, and that may attract people in October, which is what some people in the community don't want to do. I think that's
And
what
there's
she's saying.
also communications from that where we get direct messaging and people asking questions and
Right,
that's,
yeah. So,
yeah.
so in other words, you can't just, yeah. So
I think Todd's idea is a good one, that it might make sense to have a meeting that's just about this, where you have class 4 come in. We can give a better idea for the EDC board to understand all of the things that are being done. Because if you remember from last year, we combined all of our marketing efforts into one element. So it might be a good idea, Todd. I think you got
Michael,
something there.
Michael, thank you. I would say, I would say that before we try to understand what the marketing platform can do, I think we need to understand what we want it to do.
Sure.
You know,
I'm not talking specifically of the platform. I'm talking about what's being done for marketing. The platform is just one part of it, but there's a lot of other things done besides what goes through the platform. That's all I'm saying. And it might be a good idea for the group to understand it's not just the platform, it's marketing. And we need to understand all those elements.
Okay, we should go understand.
Whatever, yeah. But whatever it is, it has a purpose. And we haven't agreed on the purpose. And so
it's all just very confusing, and I'm not an idiot. I'm mostly an idiot, and it's just very confusing. It's hard to make a judgment call on this stuff, and like I said, it's just very confusing.
We're gonna go into the details, but in the meantime, Todd, I'd be more than happy to answer any specific questions. But next meeting, we will really be doing a deep dive.
A deep dive.
I should preface it with, I don't know why we can't just get them to tell us what these 6 things cost, because it seems like we should do all of them. So it's confusing to me on the granularity of it and how are we really having to subtract line item 4 to make it affordable, or what does affordable mean? So what I mean is it's a whole business of marketing Woodstock. And I just think we need to spend more time on it. Like you are, Greta. I just think we need to spend more time on it.
Marion, hold on 1 second. Deborah, hold on 1 second. Marion and then Deborah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Todd, I have a background in this, I work in this, and I was also very confused. And I went and I sat down in the marketing meeting and had these conversations. I have a much better sense. And I think Greta has a plan to sort of explain a lot of this. There are some things that I feel we can do a much better job. And I think Greta, has a plan to that. And I'm happy to work with her on that to sort of just try to convey in some really simple and clear ways what is actually being done and which things can be paused and which things can't be paused, and sort of how that all comes together. Because I had a lot of the same questions.
Yeah, I look forward to it. I know I feel like I said, I'm making fun of Patrick in a joking way. Greta, this is so much more informative for me, but it's hard to get to the finish line. It's just a lot of information.
Yeah. Deborah?
I actually think we're incredibly close. I'm just wanting to get laser focused so that we know where the dollars are going. But I think we're incredibly close, and I think this list gets us there. And I'm just wanting us to continue to hone in. But I didn't mean to throw us off that much, and I think we're incredibly close.
Well, I think we've agreed that this looks close to what we would like our communications to be doing. Yeah, so let's communicate that to class 4.
And John, it could recalibrate into our new priority areas, because like you said, maybe childcare doesn't need the more funding anyway. We have to recalibrate our 5 or 6 or 4 areas. And maybe one of the areas is full-time residents or something that informs our next years.
Agreed. And I think we could take 1 line or 2 lines out in August and put 2 new lines in. And that would be fine. What we won't be able to do is take the money from this and put it into something that isn't this.
Yeah.
And so we will need to make that decision. Either we will need to postpone or make that decision in February. So, yeah, so I think that's probably as far as we can get, which is further ahead than when we started by some measure. So in January, we will dive into into making sure we understand how the platform works, what it does, why it can do these things.
Do I need these things?
And do we need these things? I'm happy to, because there are more than 2 options. I don't know how to generate more than 2 options that we could fund in February. So if offline, I don't want to try to solve that problem now, but if anyone who suggests that there are other options can figure out a process to create those other options that we can vote on and fund, which, right, isn't someone saying there's lots of other platforms, there are, but it's actually someone saying we should use this platform and at this amount of money and so forth.
And this person will manage it.
And this person will manage it, and here's what the proposal is.
I'll
Yeah.
email you offline because I thought I'd done that.
Yeah, okay. I understand why you thought that, and I think you started it. But anyway, the point is that if I'm just simply saying, not just to the 2 of you, but to anyone else, if the reason why I've proposed 2 platforms is I can't conceive of how we would get a third approach.
Yeah.
I can absolutely conceive that there are many other approaches. I've been involved in many of them, but I don't know how we can get to it by February.
Hey,
And so
John,
if anyone knows how to get to it by February, please call me and I'll share that in the meeting with in January, and we will get those proposals.
John, if somebody wants to do a third option, and I'm going to throw this to you, Greta. If you tell me to shut up if I'm speaking out of school, let them speak to you so that they can understand everything that's being done in the marketing.
They don't have to understand it because we don't have to do everything that's being done.
Right.
No, I understand that. That's not my point. My point is we keep talking about the platform, and I don't think people understand the amount of work that's being done. And Greta, now we spent a long time, the marketing group, speaking with Greta and Marion, and I think they have a really good idea of everything that's being done. And that's if there's going to be a third option, they should at least.
But that's a different question than whether that's
eyes
what we
wide
should do,
open.
Patrick. It's a different question than whether that's what we should do. And so they don't have to know what we've done to propose an alternative.
And I don't think we have time. We have enough explaining that Greta and the team have to do in class 4 for us to understand what's being done.
And it's apples. Then you're presenting apples and oranges.
That's exactly
point.
Exactly right. The point is to present.
Yeah, but how can you present apples and oranges if you don't know what's currently being done? We're doing grapes right now.
The point is that they will understand.
Whatever. At this point, you guys are going to do.
Okay.
We don't grow oranges in Vermont, guys. Everyone relax. We don't grow oranges here.
Thank you, Todd.
Okay, I don't want to end on a down note. I do think we have pushed things forward. I realize it's confusing. I think the lack of time is, what I anticipate will be the lack of time is really more accurate, is what's causing me to try to push us to get as much clarity as we can. I think we got a lot. I think this, Deborah, you're in Jeff's summary. This is not a bad list to start with. We're not deciding on it, but it's a working list. We need to have more discussions. And I think the 2 open issues are is this precisely the list or not? And if it's possible, do we consider other options besides the 2 that we'll have? We will have 2 proposals in February.
Minimum.
Sorry, 3. We will have 3, because last year we had 2. 0, or class 4 for 100,000. This year we will have 0, class 4 for 100,000. I think I've sort of suggested something in roughly the same level. And we will have a lower cost, narrower scope, less effective proposal. We will.
I'm sorry, but you're salting the mind. That is not that is not necessarily the case.
No, we will have those 3 proposals.
But
I'm not saying we will have more.
To say it's less effective is to prejudge.
I'm sorry. We will have, sorry, I take out the less effective. Okay. We will have sorry, I didn't understand what you were objecting to. We will have a 3rd proposal that will be lower cost. It will be narrower in scope for sure. And it will be in-house. We will have those 3 proposals. Last year we had 2. This year we'll have 3 or more.
Yep.
So I think we're making progress. That's where we're headed. So, because I know that there are some people more than one person on this committee who want to make sure that we have that 3rd proposal.
Yeah.
And by the way, some of those people aren't saying that because they want to vote for the 3rd proposal. They're saying that because we all agreed last year that we can't have just those two proposals, which are the two that we were headed for getting if we didn't develop the third one. So
Yeah.
we're gonna develop the third one. So,
You know,
Okay.
my last thing before I shut up forever, because I know you hate it when I talk so much, is that we are in this position because we've been spending the money that's given to us to help the community. So it's uncharted territory, it's uncomfortable, and it's not garbage cans. This is serious business, and garbage cans is serious business in Woodstock. So I think that it takes a lot of time, a lot of discussion, but these 6 bullet points are really solid, and we just need to work through it. But no one wants to waste anyone's money. Not everyone wants everyone to be happy. We know it's not possible for everyone to be happy, but we're going to do the best we can. But this is a big investment the town's made, and it deserves time to be investigated.
Yeah.
Thank you, Todd.
Agreed. Thank you, Todd. All right. Can we have a motion? Sorry, Deborah, I think we need to push off I have a topic also that we'll push off until next month, sorry. Okay, can we have a motion to adjourn?
I move, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thank you
Have a
very
great
much.
holiday.
Yeah, appreciate you guys.
Thank you for coming, you guys.
Passwords, John. Just click it real quick. We got a screen share going. Just click our password button.
4 of our